Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'll begin by calling this meeting to order. It is Wednesday, February the 5th of 2025, and the time is 6 p.m. This is a public information meeting for File 2501, rezoning of PID 454-05784, College Road in Windsor, and Windsor Land Use By-law amendments that will be brought to us by William Hong, our planner. I'll begin with acknowledging that West Hants Regional Municipality acknowledges that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and that this land is governed by the treaties of peace and friendship signed in 1726. West Hants Regional Municipality recognizes that we are all treaty people and have responsibilities to this land and each other. The West Hants Regional Municipality also recognizes African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose history, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of Mi'kma'ki, known as Nova Scotia, for over 400 years. The West Hants Public Participation Program, established under Section 204 of the Municipal Government Act, requires a public information meeting for development agreements and proposed amendments to planning documents. This meeting is hosted by planning and development staff and provides members of the public with an opportunity to bring up any concerns and ask questions of the applicant and planning staff regarding the proposal. As a reminder, this meeting is streamed live on YouTube, and audience members are asked not to record the meeting on their personal devices. Further comment is that if we need to leave the building due to fire or other emergency, exits are found at the right and left to the back of the room. The muster location is in the staff parking lot. I would ask that Planner Dunphy please be the last person out and to check that the washrooms are empty. We will begin now the formal part of this evening's meeting with an overview of the proposal and process provided by Planner William Hong. Over to you, Mr. Hong.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone here tonight, and also everyone who are watching online. My name is Will Hong, and I'm the planner with the West Hants Regional Municipality. And I'm tonight joined with my colleague, Alex Dunphy. He is the senior planner here. So we also got a number of folks from the applicant side. And so the agenda for tonight is the public information meeting, and it's outlined in this slide. And myself will go over a few slides talking about the municipal planning process and how public can share their feedback with us. And the applicant will have the opportunities to go through their slides as well. And then we will open the floor up to the member of the public for comment and question period. And I have my business cards on the table, and I also have some maps for this subject lot. I will just highlight my contact information at the end of my presentation, so there's no need to write down for now. Tonight's meeting is about the rezoning and application to amend the Windsor Land Use By-law. And tonight is a public information meeting, which is generally the very first meeting that we hold through the planning process. So we are still in the very early phase of the planning approval, which means no decision has been made at this point. This slide shows a little bit background of the application, and we received a complete application from Brighter Community on behalf of King's Edge Hill School on January 7 this year. The application is to rezone the subject lot from single-unit residential to institutional zone and amend the Windsor Land Use By-law to allow agrivoltaic systems as an accessory use in the institutional zone. This slide shows an aerial photo for the subject lot. As you can see, the property is currently undeveloped and utilized for existing agriculture activities. And to my understanding, the subject property was used for pumpkin cultivation last year. With respect to the surrounding context, the subject lot is surrounded by some single unit dwellings as well as directly abutting the King's Edge Hill School, which is located on the eastern side of the subject lot. The subject lot also has frontage on the College Road. This slide shows the generalized future land use map, which indicates the subject property and most of the surrounding properties are designated as residential. The property to the east side of the subject lot is designated as community use, which again is the King's Edge Hill School site. And this map shows the current zoning map of the Windsor Land Use By-law, which indicates the subject lot is zoned single unit residential. And the use permitted under this zone is single unit dwellings only. Zoning from the surrounding properties include agriculture, 2-unit residential, institutional, and also College Road Comprehensive Development District. The proposal tonight is to rezone the property from single unit residential to institutional zone. And this map shows the proposed zoning change. The permitted use under institutional zone include any institutional uses which is incorporated under the Societies Act, college and educational facilities, community centers, and community service clubs and organizations, and also a wide range of other institutional uses listed under the Windsor Land Use By-law. This is a picture of the subject lot, which shows the existing open field on the property. And this picture was taken on the subject lot facing the King's Edge Hill School. And the two properties, again, are directly adjacent, connected by a sloped path that allow access between the two properties. So the Windsor Municipal Planning Strategy established policies to consider this rezoning and amendment application. Specifically for the rezoning, policy 16.1.3 enables council to consider to zone any area immediately adjacent to a given land use designation under generalized future land use map to a zone permitted in the adjacent designation without requiring a strategy amendment, provided that all policy of the strategy are satisfied. So in this case, maybe I can go back to the slides a little bit. So in this case, because the subject lot is immediately adjacent to the King's Edge Hill School, which is designated community use in the generalized future land use map. So policy 16.1.3 would apply to this application, which allows council to rezone the subject lot to a zone that is allowed within the community use designation. So in this case, this means that it can be rezoned to institutional zone. So the same zone as the King's Edge Hill School site. And policy 16.3.1 states general criteria in consideration of amendments to the land use bylaw. So the application will follow the process on the slides here, where we are holding a public information meeting tonight. We will then review as staff and create a recommendation report that will come to the Planning and Heritage Advisory Committee next month. And then the advisory committee will make their recommendation on that night. And then it will go to council for the first reading, and council will then schedule a public hearing and hold a second reading on the same night, which will be the final decision on this matter. If the application was approved by the council, the notice of approval will be placed in the paper, and that would outline the 14 days appeal period to the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board. And this is the end of my presentation slide. And if you have any questions or feedback, you are welcome to reach me through email or by telephone. And we would just request those be submitted before noon on February 19th, which is exact 2 weeks from today. And I will leave this screen for a moment if anyone wants to jot down. Once again, I can be reached through phone at 902-798-8391 with extension number 110, or by email at whong@westhants.ca, or if you prefer mail, there's also a drop box at our municipal office at 76 Morrison Drive in Windsor. And with that, thank you everyone for listening. And now I will pass over to you, Chair, with the understanding that the applicant also has some slides to go through as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Planner Hong, for your overview of the proposal and process that we are undertaking. I would now ask, I believe, King's Edgehill School Headmaster Joe Seagram has some slides to present on behalf of the application. Welcome, Headmaster Seagram, and I see they have you set up with a mic now, so thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you everybody for braving the cold tonight, and for those online for joining us. And thank you, Will, for this presentation. That was great. I actually learned something myself. Awesome, thank you. So obviously, as any good teacher would tell you, you want to get through the W's, the who, when, what, where's, and why's. So it makes sense that that our property all has, shares the common zoning, and so there's some continuity between it. But there is a compelling reason why we'd like to rezone that package, that PID, that property, from residential, which it currently is, to institutional. It is not our desire to build homes or single housing units, but we've got some interesting plans which we'd like to share with you tonight. But I thought I'd start just by telling everyone a little bit about the school. Not everyone, knows our history or who we are and how we operate. But we are the first and oldest independent school in North America. In fact, the oldest in the Commonwealth outside of Britain. And, we're very proud of our history. We've got some wonderful traditions. At current present, we're doing exceptionally well as a school, and we employ 135 people. Here, this slide shows a little bit of information about the school, but what you may not know is that there are 380 students on campus each day. 200 of them, or just about half, so 190 or so, depending on the different year, actually live there, and so they're boarding students, and those students come from all across Atlantic Canada. all the way as far west as BC and Alberta. We've got students, of course, through New Brunswick, PEI, and Newfoundland, but we have students from 29 different countries as well. Because, of course, they're living on campus, we have many staff living on campus. So there's 27 staff living on campus and multiple families living there as well. So it's quite a community. And if you've walked around, you'll get a sense that it's very much like a university campus. So it's complete with not just dormitories and dining hall, but it has full theater, music room, dance hall, everything from a yoga studio to a double gym, swimming pool, and a chapel and gorgeous library. In fact, our library is the oldest school purposes building in all of North America that is still being used for students and for education. So a lot going on and a lot of students from around the world who choose this little school and this little town and this little province. They've got their choice of places to go from around the world, and they come from Africa, from Asia, all across Europe, and and North America and South America. And of course, they start young. So our youngest student is 10 years old, starting grade 6. And it's a university preparatory school. So all of our graduates are looking to go to university and college programs, not just here in Canada, but in North America and around the world. We do have provincial certification for green schools, and this is where I get into, so you've learned the what, and now it's into the, the why. So why do we want really to rezone this parcel of land that we own? And the reason is because we need to do our best for the environment. We are a Nova Scotia Green School. We are looking to have national certification to be an Eco-Canada certified school, as well as be part of the international eco schools. So we like to be a world standard in terms of eco schools. And, you can't just say, hey, I want to be an eco school. You have to walk the talk, right? And just as we all are trying to do our best to benefit the planet, we have an extra duty, because it's not just us as an institution, but the education of students, the education of these young students, not just here from Canada, but from around the world, is really important. And they need to learn the importance of environmental stewardship of our planet. And sort of in many ways, sort of my generation has caused this global warming problem, and we're leaving it to the next generation to solve it. So any way in which we can get ahead of the game and do our bit and reduce our environmental guilt, has got to be good. So next slide, here we go. So we do so much on campus to reduce our carbon footprint. We are a designated idle-free campus, and we compost and recycle. We've got all those, they're really annoying, those shower faucets that, just do a sprinkle of water, so you have to run around to get wet and get warm. We have our own student eco team. We celebrate Earth Day. We do as much as we can, within the confines of the day, and turning off lights and lowering temperatures. But, and there's the big but, and this is really where we get to the rub of it all. We burn at minimum 290,000 liters of heating oil annually. And this is to heat our buildings, to heat our pool, to heat all our hot water for showers and all the rest of it. So we have a huge carbon footprint. And I show this picture of the swimming pool, which of course is gorgeous and is used for swimming lessons for the community and all sorts of aquafit classes and all the rest. But just for the scope of what does 300,000 liters of liquid look like? Well, it looks like this. So this pool is just over what we burn each year in terms of furnace oil. So that's a lot. That's a huge carbon footprint, and we'd like to eliminate that. So our hope and our plan is that we can, well, that goes forward. I want to go the other way. There we go. Is to have to electrify the campus and to do so with green source electricity, and part of that plan is to have solar fields on that parcel of land adjacent to the school. Those, in order to have solar panels, we have to rezone that parcel of land. But we don't just want to have solar panels. That's just one part of the equation. We would like to have a proper solar farm. And there's a technical term for this. It's called agrivoltaics. And this is where you actually farm the land in and around and between the solar panels. And there's been a lot of research gone into agrivoltaics. It can actually be tremendously beneficial. Some crops actually grow better in partially shaded environments. And certainly within the land itself, it receives the same amount of rainfall, the same amount of moisture. But because it is partially shaded, the water retention is vastly improved. So in fact, it can be tremendously beneficial as agricultural land. So in order to do this, we have to rezone the property. There are many ways of installing solar panels. So our hope, as you see these images here, our hope is to be able to carry on to farm. And to farm with a variety of intentions. One is education. So to be a certified eco school, you do need to teach. There is a curriculum that would run right through the grades at the school. So you're not just walking the talk and reducing your carbon footprint, but you're actually teaching. And part of that teaching is not just asking students to turn lights off, is not to leave the water running when you're brushing your teeth and that sort of thing. But it's also, so that they learn that food doesn't just come from Sobeys or the superstore, that they can have a hand in growing food, and we can have a whole sort of holistic experiential curriculum where students can participate not just in the farming but in the harvesting of the crops that grow on this agrivoltaic property. It is our hope as well to work with the community with the system, and to have community participation, community farming, so that the crops can go to Harvest House. And what a cool thing it would be. So we actually participate regularly with Harvest House and help feed the community. We work very closely with the local food bank, and several times a year have food drives, and do what we can to assist feeding, the 600 plus families that rely on these sources of food in our community. So how cool it would be to be able to harvest food from this property and then to actually make soup out of that and make a meal and to serve it ourselves at Harvest House. So that is all part of our environmental green plan for the school. It's part of our strategic plan, as part of our strategic vision for the school, just not just in the short term, but in the long term. As we electrify the campus and are able to convert all our burners from oil, electrify them we will have an increased need for electricity. So not just to have green source electricity, but to be able to produce the electricity that we use would be an absolute dream, and would be the first of its kind that I'm aware of in Canada and certainly in North America. And what a great feather in its cap for this community would it be to have not just the first independent school in North America, but to have the first school to go, completely green, and to have its platinum certification, and to actually produce its own power, and to have a good field, all right, to table program that it can use to just educate its students. So where would it be? Interestingly enough, it's a great image that Will had of the PIDs and of the, where the boundary lines are. But if you look here at this aerial view of the campus, you can see where Danny has cultivated, this side of the gravel road that bisects the property. Now, interestingly enough, and people may not know, but the other side of that property, on the other side of the gravel road, between this lot and the development on the other side that you can see there, that's actually owned by King's Edge Hill School as well. So this lot actually exists between our property and shares its largest boundary with our property on the other side. And then on the east and west sides, its property is bounded by Danny's farm and farmhouse, by Harold Adams, and Harold's here today. So by Harold's property, his house is there, and as well as the Long Pond lot, which is a shared property owned by Danny and his brother Andrew. So this property actually sits between both King's Edge Hill properties, that the large lot on the other side, which is currently zoned residential, and King's Edge Hill School. So it is our hope to be able to zone this in such a way that we can take full advantage of its institutional designation, that we can produce green power for use at the school, as well as to continue its legacy of agriculture. So with that, I finish my presentation. I hand the slides over to our planner, Lauren, who will help walk us through the rest.
Thank you very much, Headmaster Seagram. Lauren, if you can just give us your name just for the record.
Yes, good evening. Thank you all for being here. My name is Lauren Isabel. I'm a planning consultant with Brighter Community Planning and Consulting here in Windsor. And just get my bearings here. So there we go. All right. So here we have a slightly different view of what everyone else has been describing. So outlined in red is the subject property, King's Edge Hill adjacent. And just to the north, we've got Clifton Museum Park, as well as the Howard Dill Enterprises between College Road and sort of the lower bound of the property. And then as well, the Gladys Manning Memorial Home, just to kind of give you some bearings here for people that are familiar with the area and for those that are not. The site itself has an area of about 10.66 acres. As we mentioned, King's Edge Hill School are the owners. As Will gave a good overview of, the designation is currently for residential, but eligible to be, changed over to the community use.
Lauren, can I just ask you to lean into the mic a bit when you're speaking? The mics are intended for the people in the audience. They're for the recording purposes, so they're not ideal for a room, but just for people in the back. If you can just lean in a bit, it would be great. Thank you.
No problem.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's great. Good for everyone to be able to hear, both here and at home. Okay, so the current zone is for single unit residential, R1. Won't go over the surroundings again. I think we've got a pretty good idea of that at this point. So a couple pictures before we had the snow. So we've got topography with a fairly gentle slope, grassy terrain, Currently, it is alternately used for pumpkins and then left fallow, and there is some hay being produced. And this is a full kind of site plan of the potential build out for the solar array. So in between the dark sort of blue lines, which would be representing solar panels, there would be crop rows. So they would alternate one and then the other, which is what the idea of an agrivoltaic system is. So to have a dual use of land for solar energy production, as well as agriculture production. So the area shown in sort of purple blue here is approximately 7 acres of the 10.66 total. So there is additional space left over, some of which, as Joe mentioned, there's an aspiration to use potentially as a community garden plots, and the slim piece that goes down to College Road would not be built out for the solar panels in any of the scenarios going forward. And so this is a little bit of a mouthful, but we did put forward a potential definition for agrivoltaics. So an agrivoltaic system means a structure or array of structures and ancillary equipment designed to integrate agricultural activities with the generation of renewable energy through solar panels. Without restricting the generality of this definition, an agrivoltaic system may include elevated photovoltaic panels, dual-use solar arrays, structures designed to optimize crop growth beneath or around them, and associated equipment for energy conservation and distribution, but does not include standalone solar panels used solely for non-agricultural purposes. So what we have requested is to rezone the subject lot from single unit residential to become institutional, which would then match the King's Edgehill lot. So the current land use bylaw requires this, which is why we're pursuing that element. And then the requested land use bylaw amendment is to permit these agrivoltaic setup as an accessory use for institutional zones. So if this planning application is accepted, just for the general public's understanding, these would only be eligible right now in zones that are institutional. So there has to be an intention that this energy is used to supplement the institutional use itself. And generally, people have these types of concerns for planning conflicts. So I just wanted to sort of touch on a few of them in advance. Of course, feel free to ask more questions or submit questions if you'd like further information or if I've missed anything here. In terms of traffic, the lot would be accessed via Bill Wade Drive, which is an existing road on the King's Edgehill campus. So traffic would be not going along the College Road to access it. They'd be going into the campus themselves. Generally, once the solar panels are installed, we would really expect very minimal traffic increases beyond what the campus already experiences. So, as I mentioned, like with the community garden, perhaps that would generate a couple extra trips here and there as people are coming in to access their plots, but this wouldn't be a major expectation. So for aesthetics, basically this is the idea that some people just might not like how solar panels look, or they preferred the original kind of natural aesthetic of the lot. So some ideas around this could be use of screening through landscaping, perhaps planting tall grasses along the outer edge to shield it from view from either the road or existing residential. There's not a lot of view of this area from the road, just due to the topography and some trees that aren't shown in this picture. But we don't expect a major concern there, but people do have their preferences. In terms of noise, odor, or dust, there really isn't much of a change here from what's already happening. Again, the installation would maybe generate very moderate noise, but once the solar panels are running, there's no noise associated with them. There's already a campus there. There's already some agricultural use happening. So, the land actually with the solar panels, as Joe mentioned, is more likely to retain its moisture. So we would actually expect a decrease in any dust from the agricultural use. And then to move on by infrastructure, that's more about any additional demand placed on the infrastructure for, Windsor and West Hants. So there wouldn't be any anticipated irrigation system requiring large amounts of water. The energy is actually being produced here, not taken from the grid. There's no sewer associated with this. So again, fairly negligible impacts anticipated there. In terms of adjacent uses, as we've said, the lot on the other side, the both major flanking lots are owned by King's Edgehill. The farming is congruent with the Dill Enterprise activities that are currently going on. And so, again, we don't anticipate any major impact here. I just wanted to add that, King's Edgehill has been very adamant in trying to be early on the ball in terms of informing neighbors. They've had a flyer that they've distributed door to door in the immediate area to residences, and actually, went personally to be able to answer any questions early. So just in terms of stakeholder engagement, this is something that they're extremely committed to moving forward and want this to be a net positive, both for the school and the surrounding community. So just to kind of sum up some key benefits here to this project, it really aligns, it's paramount almost to King's Edgehill's current sustainability goals in terms of having their food be produced as locally as possible. Joe didn't mention this, but he's shared with me that they subscribe to something called, the 100-mile diet. Maybe people have heard this term. So as much of their food as possible is already being sourced locally. So this just takes that a step further as well. Not buying energy from the grid that is not green source. So to have this produced in a way that is sustainable is really important. And just to kind of put it in a larger context as one example of many, this change would be supported by the 2021 Nova Scotia Environmental Goals and Climate Change Reduction Act, which has set a 50% greenhouse gas reduction goal by 2030. So we're coming up to that pretty shortly here in the next 5 years. So these types of projects speak positively to moving that goal forward. And as well, benefits to the community itself. We've talked about the garden plots, donations. Joe talked about making the soup and having the students distribute that as being a great way to give back in all of this. So, that's our sort of initial presentation here. So if anybody wants to contact me, my email is Lauren, LAUREN, @brighterplanning.ca. And we'll be available. We don't have the cutoff date of February 19th for the staff report. So you can reach out anytime that you want on that to me.
Great. Thank you very much there, Ms. Isabel. That's it for the presentation on behalf of the proponent and yourselves. So we thank you both for taking the time to share what was a very informative campaign on agrivoltaics, if I've got the pronunciation right on it. And I'm sure that many people in the community look forward to more information in that regard. The next stage within our process is we'll ask, we do have a gallery here this evening. We don't often get too many people, so this is a great thing to have so many people come out. I'll begin by asking if there's any members of the public that wish to ask questions or provide comments on the proposal as it's been presented here today. Again, this is just the first step as part of a process, but please feel free. If you wish, you can raise your hand and come forward, or you may, come forward to the mic as you choose. Please come forward. We need you to come forward to the mic just so we can pick it up for the record, Mr. Hickey. Yes, and you can sit if you wish. And if you would just begin by giving us your name and where you live generally would be appreciated.
Certainly. The name is Greg Dickey. I live at 327 College Road. And the question I'm interested in asking is the timeline for the construction of the project.
Thank you, Mr. Hickey.
No, Dickey,
Sorry,
D-I-C-K-I-E.
My apologies.
Not at all.
I was in the cold this afternoon, and I think I must have frozen something there.
It's all right.
Mr. Hong, I don't know if you have that or if we want to get the applicant to speak to it.
Yeah, through you, Chair. I don't have that information, but I can pass over to the headmaster if he wants to give a general idea of the timeline.
You can go to the other mic, Joe. Yes, just in case. Absolutely, same thing. If you push the button and if you can lean in as we've identified.
Good question, Greg, because for us that's the big question too. So we're at the very start of this process, and so our hope is that we can get approval to rezone the lot. We have an application to Nova Scotia Power to be able to receive the power to be able to even do it. And then if we receive that, those two permissions, and we actually get a permit to build a solar farm, then it's up to, the engineers and the construction company to get it going. So I would hope that the permission process and the rezoning process would take place, in the next 8 to 10 months. And then following that, we can then, put it out to tender and get some good engineering drawings and then put it out to tender. So if we were generating our own power and getting, some produce from the fields in the next 2 years, that would be great.
Excellent. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank King's Edge Hill for keeping the road open through their property during the construction on the road itself. It was certainly convenient, and I'm sure the majority of us respected speed limits up there and everything else, but thank you.
You're welcome, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dickey and Headmaster Seagram. We'll ask if there's we have another member coming forward.
My name is Harold Adams, and I reside in one of the properties adjacent to this development. First of all, just a general clarification. Are we dealing with the land use bylaw for Windsor or for West Hands?
Sorry, I'll put that over to Planner Hong.
Yes, so that's a good question. So this property is located under the planning area of the Windsor Land Use By-law. So the amendments to add the agrivoltaic system to the land use bylaw will only be within the Windsor Land Use By-law.
Sure, because there is a difference between the two institutional. I guess one major concern I have is how wide will the placement of the solar panels be, and what setbacks will be required from non-owned Kings Edge Hill property, from our property? How many feet will they be set back?
Through to you, Mr. Hong.
Through Chair to the member of public. So since this property is located, it's zoned under the institutional, and so once it get rezoned from single unit residential to institutional, and to my understanding, the current setbacks to the institutional zones is 30 feet.
Is that sufficient for machinery?
I cannot comment on that.
Right. Okay. From what little research I've done, my concern is erosion. When you put the solar panels in place, water will be on certain areas, and drainage is an important factor for our property. Any water drainage can cause, an effect on our property. So will we be getting the plans?
Well, I guess I could say, and I'll defer to Mr. Hong here as well, but the first part of the process this evening is dealing with the rezoning component of it. As we go through that process, when the application comes in, then at that point in time, there's characteristics that look for drainage considerations and the like. Mr. Hong, do you have anything to add to that? And I also see Headmaster Seacrum is also willing to weigh in on this.
Through you, Chair. So at this point, no site plan has been submitted yet because, again, this is just a rezoning application. So we will only require site plan to be submitted during the permitting process. So I don't have the site plans.
All right. The other aspect is, and it's only a question, does it make any sense to zone the access strip of land to institutional, since access will be through Bill Wade Drive? Would one leave it, the present zoning of the 60-foot wide strip of land going back to the major portion of the land, leave it as residential, or you zone the whole thing?
Getting over to you, Mr. Hong.
Through Chair, could you rephrase your question again?
Sure. There is a 60-foot strip of land leading from College Road to the major portion of this 10.66 acre. Okay. According to your plans, that's going to be zoned institutional too. So does it make sense to zone that as well as the balance of the land, or should you just leave it residential?
Okay, Planner Dunphy, if you wish to assist with that.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. So great question. For that access portion that sort of fronts onto College Road, generally, we're not in the business of doing what's called a split zone, which is what that would create.
Right.
That does create some issues for any development on any lot that is split zoned. So for simplicity's sake, we would be looking to rezone the entire property
Sure.
as institutional rather than try to split between
Sure.
residential and institutional.
Right. My understanding is that there will be some noise generated as a result of these panels, basically from the inverters. And I'm just wondering if there's any plans in effect to minimize that noise.
I don't know that that's part of the current, discussion for the application at this point in time. It's about the rezoning and the application. I think we may get into that further.
I'd like to make it clear, I'm in favor of the rezoning.
Sure.
I'm also in favor of the solar panels being installed. I just have these questions.
Absolutely. Thank you. Headmaster Seacrum has signaled that he may have a specific answer for you or something he can share.
Yeah, and Harold, these are really good questions, and thank you for your support. We're not in the business of upsetting our neighbors.
No.
We've lived,
No.
we've really well, side by side for years. So
I quite agree, yes.
let's make sure that, when we've got the heavy equipment in there, that we ensure that there's some good drainage. So,
Yes.
and, so that your property isn't affected adversely.
Right.
Lauren mentioned, that screening, maybe because that, your side of the lot being on the east side and
Yes.
not in the way, maybe, a good hedge and, and that could be at the 30-foot line or the 40-foot line or the 50-foot line. We can walk the property and
Sure.
just figure that out. So that's a pledge I make to you publicly that,
Right.
you know, we'll be good neighbors.
Oh, I understand that. And I must say, you know, King's Edge has been a fantastic neighbor. It's,
Thank
we're
you.
pleased to have you there. So
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
that's all my questions for now.
Great. Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Adams, for coming forward for your questions. Is there, please feel free to come forward there, sir.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ning Liang. I'm a planner working with Better Community Planning as well, and just have this question for my own curiosity. So aside from the rezoning side, we're also proposing adding the agrivoltaic as the accessory use. I think it makes a lot of sense for King's Edge School's context, but I couldn't help to notice that this accessory use is permitted in a institutional zone. And if you look at the concept of agrivoltaic, it's a combination of agriculture use as well as a energy generation use. So just wondering from the municipality side, is there any other plans or even just thoughts on expanding this permitted accessory use to a industrial or agriculture zone that'll probably fit this context better in the future?
All right. Thank you very much for your question. I'm going to have to put that to, I think I've got Planner Dunphy signaling. He'll take that question.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. Through you. Great question as well, Ning. At this time, no, there's no direction from council to expand our idea that's being proposed here. If in a future council meeting, there's direction to staff to look into expanding agrivoltaics into other zones or designations. I'm sure staff would be happy to pursue that. But just based on this application, it's a little bit more specific to the institutional zone rather than any other zone. So right now, we're just starting with institutional, and depending on what direction we get, we may move in another direction.
All right, lovely. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for your question and coming forward. I'll do a check again. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak or ask questions regarding the presentation and the proposal here this evening? Please come forward there, ma'am.
Yes. I have questions that may be.
Can we have you,
Sure. Pardon?
can we have you give your name first for the
Sorry.
record? And
I already knew that, so.
yeah, I
sorry.
figured.
Ann Knowles,
Hmm.
and I'm sorry that we have our backs to you. I have a property on College Road, and I'm not against the solar panels. However, thinking of the future, is there ever, and should there be, and is there now, any allowance for when at some point that these things are outdated or not working, or if there's something new comes along and is discovered, who's going to remove them when they start to fall apart? We've got the same kind of issue with the big windmills, taking them down and disposing of them after all is said and done. So is there any allowance for that in any of these kind of rezoning issues?
Thank you, Ms. Knowles. Planner Dunphy, do you wish to respond to that on decommissioning or?
Sure. Through you, Chair. Where this use is essentially going to be permitted through an accessory use to institutional lots. It'll be essentially a permitted use within the zoning at that point in time if the rezoning is approved. So there is no development agreement in the case of that you see with wind turbines where they have a whole Chair, what's the term? I'm blanking.
Procedure or process for decommissioning.
Thank you. Decommissioning clause. Thank you, Chair. So those would be included in developments that we would consider by development agreement, but where this is a permitted use based on these changes, then we would not be having a decommissioning clause. So that would be up to the property owner for decommission.
So I didn't quite understand that. So you said there's development, you talked about development agreement. I'm not sure how that fits into the rezoning. Can you just say that again?
Sure, I can clarify through you, Chair.
Thank you, planner.
Where this is a rezoning, once the property is rezoned, it will then be a permitted use. And so there is no clause that would require, I'm blanking on the term again.
Decommissioning.
Decommissioning, thank you. There is no decommissioning clause, so it would be completely up to the property owner for decommissioning.
So would it be a very unusual thing to put it into a decommissioning clause into rezoning or development agreement?
Through you, planner.
Yes, that a development agreement is very different than a rezoning. So a development agreement is a contract between a developer and the municipality, whereas a rezoning is a public process to amend the planning documents. So at the end of a rezoning process, we won't have a contractual agreement between the developer and the municipality.
Okay. And one other thing I wanted to ask, and you probably know the answer to this. In your efforts to produce food, I would expect if with the farming equipment and that you'd have to have some other buildings built, sort of agricultural buildings, small barns, big barns, I don't know what. Is there going to be room allowed for those in your plans?
Yes, we actually have quite a bit of equipment already on campus. We have our own tractors and all sorts of plows and that sort of thing because we're managing 66 acres already. So we'll be able to house our own equipment. So if there is there's no plan to add additional buildings other than a power station, on that lot, and the power station is required to collect all the electricity that's generated.
I would expect that if you were doing an agricultural effort there, you would have a fairly copious amount of produce at some point, and you may have to set up something. So is that allowed in this institutional rezoning? Would that kind of thing be allowed?
Through to Planner Hong.
Thank you for the question. So that's a good question. In terms of the buildings or accessory buildings relates to agriculture uses, that is not allowed in the institutional zones. So what is permitted in the institutional zone is something that I on my slides. So that could be anything relates to educational facilities, community centers, and there's a wide range of institutional uses in the Windsor Land Use By-law, but agriculture uses is not listed under that. So that being said, if that's something like nurseries or greenhouse, that's not something that you could do as of right.
But you are saying then that they would be able to do a barn for agricultural use. Did you not say that? Okay, you better say it again then, if you don't mind. Could you just say that again so I can get that clear?
If you could just respond again.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So
what is permitted?
So what is permitted as of right is currently under the Windsor Land Use By-law. So if you go to the Windsor Land Use By-law under specific institutional zones, agriculture uses such as like greenhouse or nurseries are not permitted as of right. So that will not be permitted under the current Windsor Land Use By-law.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Knowles. Thank you for coming forward. Are there any other members of the public that wish to provide comment or ask questions regarding the rezoning being discussed as part of the proposal? And just one last check. I'm not seeing anybody moving. Nobody's being shy out there. Mr. Dill, please come forward. And though, and if you could kind of lean into the mic, Danny, there,
How's that?
that's great. And we look forward to hearing your comments. Thank you.
Oh, Danny Dill, 400 College Road. Been there a lifetime. My forefathers since the 1800s. I guess the same as Kings. I just want to say it's a wonderful thing. It's our future where we're going with all this today. And, you know, I'm seeing the development on College Road, of course, lately. I mean, the road worked 2 years. And now we have the next big major construction with Dyke Land going on. So, you know, basically it's progress. You know, we got to do what we have to do for the future and our next generations. So I think it's a wonderful idea. I think it'll be very quiet. It's not going to be noisy like everything else we've dealt with. Trust me. And I just think it'll be a great educational tool. So I just say good luck and meet a lot of hip cups with farming. Trust me.
Thank you very much, Danny, for coming forward and for your comments. Greatly appreciated. So last call I'll make for members of the public if we haven't heard from everybody already or anybody with any other comments or questions. Okay, so then the last check is we do have at least one member of council. Do you have any questions there, Councillor Remy, to put forward on the proposal? So that's great. That's our input on public comments or questions. So I thank everybody that came forward for your questions. As the planners noted, they were all good questions and they all help, you know, in providing edification for the application that's in front of us and the process that we're beginning towards looking at the agrivoltaics and the rezoning of this property. So thank you all for that. Comments or questions on this application can be submitted until noon on February the 19th, 2025. Details for the contact, which I'll just read out here. One is Will Hong Planner, and his email address is whong, that's WHONG, @westhants.ca. Or the telephone number you can reach him at is 902-798-8391, extension 110. You may also reach out to Carrie Fougier, Acting Director of Planning and Development. Her email address is kfougier, that's KFOUGERE @westhants.ca, or her telephone number is 902-798-8391, extension 114. And all contact information for the planning department and the planners involved with the project can be found on the municipality's website at www.westhants.ca. And with that, I will thank you all again for coming and for your participation in this evening's meeting. And we look forward to the future meetings regarding this application. And I will now call this